Yeah, I only did the first half hour of the video this weekend. I mean, I took notes and stuff, but that's as far as I got.
Yeah, I don't think I watched I watched some more of it, but I didn't make it through the whole next section either.
Okay. I mean, that's why we have a week to work on it. So
Yeah.
figured make it easier for everyone. Oh, holiday weekend has made me very tired.
Huh, well, did you have fun at least?
I didn't go to my folks because I was worried about my cat freaking out because my apartment complex had random people blowing up fireworks all through the day. And I
Uh,
did not want her feeling like I was leaving her alone with all that. So I stayed here, but we watched like some movies and stuff. Like we started watching this show. Um, I think it's Black Summer. It's about zombies. I'm a weirdo, but it's good so far.
okay. Well, it sounds like you still had a good time. So that's nice.
Yeah, we'll give it a minute or so, see if anybody jumps on. I know like a lot of people have 4-day weekends, so they might be just chilling.
Right.
Um, what I could do is, I'm still going over it. So we could either talk about what I've went or we could wait till Wednesday and we could just talk about some of the stuff together when there's more folks on. It's up to you.
Um, I guess I'd be down for either, but I know it's not really a useful answer. Did you have anything like particular that you stuck out to you?
I do know that like pretty much the first half he kind of has a setting the billing account up, which we already did. He goes over that, but he does talk about the difference between users and groups and roles. Um, so I felt that was a little bit flushed out compared to what we were doing. He said like users permit external access to AWS resources such as AWS console, and it authenticates with the CLI and their machines. And then it also gives direct access to services using the given security tokens. So, and then roles are meant for internal. So like you got your users that are external and then roles are internal. So, like your EC2s, your Lambda functions to enable the job, their job effectively. Roles don't give any access to their own. And he says that like it pretty much acts like it has its own permissions, but there are no permissions given on it. So that was the one thing that stood out to me.
Okay. Yeah, I think the last thing I heard him talk about was like the multi-factor authentication, like how it adds an extra layer of protection. But it's like I didn't really like I'd have to rewatch it because like I didn't really catch it all that well. Because like I remember him talking about like the IAM user and like how the concepts that you really want to understand with the IAM are like basically the authentication and the authorization.
Yeah.
It was like
Um,
yeah.
yeah, I know that he said, what is the difference? And that's kind of like where I guess that's what made me look more into it to find out like, the users are more external and then the roles are internal. Um, then he like goes over like configuring, just looking. He doesn't really talk about subnets, which I think is something that we probably would want to talk about. And like subnets and submask. He talks about IP address, and like I had to look up because this is something that I'm not very familiar with, which is the IPv4, which is Internet Protocol version 4. So I had to get like information on that. And then they say like every IP has two parts, which is the network and then the device. And there's like, I guess, 5 different categories, I'm thinking. So like you got class A, class B, class C. They say class A networks can be connected by million of devices, and then B and C networks are progressively smaller in size. And then they talk about D and E, which networks are not commonly used. So like they didn't like get into any detail on that. And then he talks about like route tables, not round. I don't know why I'm thinking King Arthur. Route tables. And then I like did a little research on that. But that, I mean, like I said, I didn't get into like too much of it. I mean, I got notes, but it's something that I would need to like, you know, prep for.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I'll say I think probably the only thing that really stuck out to me, like particularly, was there's talking about setting up the billing alerts, because like I guess I didn't realize that when you set up the billing alarm for AWS account, it's not necessarily the exact same thing as like you can set up the alerts, but it's like I guess it's CloudWatch that is like where you do the actual alarm.
Yeah.
And it's like I think based off the instructions we followed from the last course, like I think I did those steps. I guess I didn't. They weren't really as solid in my mind as like as this is what's like you use for that. Like I didn't see how they were separate and how they like work together, but I feel like his explanation kind of clarified that for me.
Yeah, we did it. The guy that had us do it, we clicked on the hyperlink when we had that little radio button. So it brought, instead of going to CloudWatch, it just clicking that brought us to where we needed to go. So it was the same steps, because I was like, oh man, I don't remember doing this the same way. And then I was like, wait, this is the same. Like I pulled up the instructions and it was everything that was the same. Just he went to a different route.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. I didn't write that down. I could always, you know, go back and check it out. But yeah, I think, like I said, I did copy some of the stuff over from like when we did the billing alert. So I figured that would be a good refresher for all of us seeing it. I mean, it was for me. And then I guess, I mean, I could share my notes, what I got already. Like I said, I went through just nosediving, just like looking for certain things, because a certain part of his video on his slide, he, like I said, he was talking about the IPv4. And I'm like, I've seen this before multiple times and I have no freaking clue what it was. So that's why I like tried to get more information on that.
Yeah, I think the only time I've seen like IPv4 is like when I'm setting up a Minecraft server and I have to like check which address or my computer's at so I can tell what Minecraft, which one it's on.
Right.
But like I never really paid attention to like what it was.
I can talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
So as you guys know, the internet is based off of the internet protocol, or IP. And then there's abstractions built on top of that with TCP and HTTP, but we don't care about that right now. Like different entities on the internet, such as servers or just like the different entities that you'll have in AWS will have IPv4 IP addresses. And those are like the basic ones that you'll see that are like, say, like 162 point blah blah point blah blah point blah blah blah. Like the highest I think you can get is 255, 255, 255, 255. I think it's for. But the thing, I don't know if you'll run into this with the cloud practitioner, but if you like do the math for IPv4, let's see. Yeah, you'll have around 4.29 billion IP addresses, right?
Mhm.
In the public domain. There's like a few different things we can talk about, but just like talking about the reason. Did you guys get to IPv6 at all?
He doesn't really talk about IPv6, but I did look it up. Like, he doesn't really like go into detail with it. It was me who personally went in looking for it, just because, like I said, I keep seeing it and didn't know what it was. I know it's version 6, but I didn't get any more information on that yet.
All right, well, I can continue on a little bit. This is more of an interesting tidbit here.
Okay.
You're going to need to dig into IPv4. I don't remember if you have to go too in depth with it for the cloud practitioner, or if that was the solutions architect. The solutions architect goes a lot more into detail with the networking, because networking is very confusing at first if you don't think about it. So it might take another pass through to understand, because it took me a pass or two to be like, what the hell's going on here? Even looking at outside resources. But IPv4 has, I think, 4 like little like numbers. The highest you can go from the range 0 to 255, I believe. So it's like 0 to 255 period, and then there's 4 of them. But I'm sure you guys appreciate, like, with that many, there's only like 255 or 256 rather combinations, or 256 like numbers you can get for each like part of a number. So if you like do the math or whatever, you only get about 400 or 4.29 billion IP addresses, which is a lot because a billion is like a huge number. But everybody in their refrigerator is on the internet now. So we have all of our computers. Some people have multiple computers. People have their Fitbits online. People have their refrigerators online. There are so many public IP addresses that can go around, and we're coming up on that limit. So IPv6 is the answer to that. So I'm going to paste in a number that's very, very large. And this is the number of combinations and like public IP addresses we can get from IPv6. I'm going to paste it in the Zoom chat.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so 4.29 billion versus that. I don't see us ever running up against that number unless we start putting our toenails online somehow.
Yeah.
So IPv6 has a different format, and I'll post in the format. I think there might also be, yeah, each X is hexadecimal. So let me paste this in. That's what the format looks like. Each one of those X's is a bit, and each one of those bits can be a hexadecimal number. So I think that's 0 through F, G. I don't remember where hexadecimal stops, but wait, there's 10, A, B, C, D, E. Yeah, well, it doesn't matter, but we have a lot more there. And I think on AWS, like the stuff I've seen, like generally people are still using IPv4 to identify their resources, like in the public internet, but some people might choose the option to use IPv6 because of the running up against the limit. It's not anything you really need to think about in your day-to-day job. It just like depends on like maybe if you need to interface with something that needs IPv6, you'll choose that or whatever. But I'm just talking about the public internet aspect of it, right? We're not talking about internal networking. Internal networking, you generally see numbers that start with 172, right? Whatever. And then there's also, I think, 198? You'll use those within like your private VPC to identify like resources within your VPC so they can talk to each other. You don't need public IP addresses for that. That's only for resources that are open to the internet.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's going to take a while, but yeah,
No,
right now
honestly,
I understand it.
no, and like me saying that it's gonna take a bit is not me being condescending at all, because I went through it the first time. This shit. Because like they kind of like, even with Stefan Merrick's course, like he jumps into all these like terminologies, and I'm like, okay, well, what's a VPC? What's a subnet? Why do we need it? What's an internet gateway? What's a NAT table? I can have you guys talked about all that stuff yet?
He doesn't like really talk about it. He briefly talks about it when he talks about the VPCs, but like he doesn't give a definition. But I did go in and get a definition for the subnets, the VLAN, the VPN. I did do what is it? I did a definition of subnet mask because that's for the routes. And then I kind of broke down like the IP address meaning. And then I went through because he talks about the AWS route tables. And then he talks about gateway, but he doesn't get into a description. He just says this is what's part of the VPC.
Okay. I can show you a little bit, but if I'm being perfectly honest, when it comes to route tables, I learned that for the exam, but I haven't had to touch them since. So that's something I'm gonna have to just for myself, so I don't like give you guys the wrong definition. We'll have to look up again. Because that's kind of like the beauty of like this stuff. Like you pass the exam, and you know when you hear a route table later on, you know that it's related to this stuff, but you'll probably need to look it up again. But VPC, oh, that's ugly. That is the ugliest line I've ever drawn.
It's not that bad.
It was horrible. Thanks for being sweet, though. Well, that's not better. Whatever. But a VPC is kind of like the equivalent of like a VPN. I think now when you create resources in AWS, like say like an EC2, it's going to be put in a default VPC automatically. And I think the default VPC like has like I'm not going to say that out loud because I don't remember, but there's a default VPC, which is like the equivalent of a VPN, right? So the ugly VPC.
Hey, I like the color.
I like the color, but something's not right. I just want it to be thicker. I don't want it to look like, oh, here we go. I found it. Then inside of a VPC, you can have different subnets. You guys are familiar with the cloud concept of high availability and having redundancy in different availability zones?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
So I think generally subnets will be like the VPC will be around all your resources, and I think you might be able to have cross geo VPCs, but don't quote me on that. I'll look that up myself. But generally, when I think of a VPC, I think of it as being a part, like being around all your resources in a certain geo. And then the different subnets, that's better. That's whatever. The different subnets will be usually for different availability zones for like your resources. I know when I was playing around with having, I was doing some sort of like dummy experiment on AWS before. And I think when I was either at work or like by myself, and I think when I was like choosing where I wanted my EC2 to be deployed, I had to choose like different subnets that corresponded to different availability zones. But you can also like check that out too, just going into the console and just playing around with like putting EC2s in different subnets and see like where they correspond to. But these can be the different subnets, right?
Right.
There is the idea of a public subnet, which what is something that denotes public. I'll do like a globe or some shit right here. That looks like a very shitty basketball, but we're gonna go with that. Oh god. Whatever. Oh, that's it. Still looks like a whatever. This is a public subnet, so that means that the internet can have access to it. And usually, if you want the internet to have access to a public subnet, I think Making a subnet public usually means that you have an internet gateway, right? And that's what this guy is. All the internet going in here. Internet traffic's allowed. You can set up firewalls or what have you, but just for this demonstration, we don't care about any of that. Internet can go in right here, right? So that's what makes it public. Private subnets are generally the stuff you don't want to have access to the internet. Right, but if for whatever reason you need, like, let's say you have like, we're gonna pretend that potato looking thing is a database, okay?
Okay.
If we need for the database, if it's not like one that's managed by AWS, let's say we have like an EC2 instance and we just throw like some MySQL software on there. We're like, cool, we're going to manage the database ourselves. If we need the database to have access to the open internet so it can get its updates, we'll use what's called a NAT gateway or a NAT. There's another term for it. NAT gateways are the AWS managed version. There's another version I think you'll talk about. I'm forgetting the name of it now, but the other version, you're going to have to like manage yourself and do some crazy shit with the route tables. But
is that the local gateway?
Hold on.
I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize. This is a review for me too. I should have watched the video. I'm going to start watching them now. NAT instance. That's the other one.
What was it?
A NAT instance.
Okay.
But generally, like, I don't know if you're going to get there yet or not, but NAT gateway is generally what's recommended because it's easier to work with, and AWS manages all the weird stuff you'd have to do with a NAT instance. So if I were you, I think I do remember this being on the exam, I would look up the difference between a NAT gateway and a NAT instance and like what the advantages and disadvantages of using both are.
Okay.
He doesn't talk about that in whatever. But yeah, like I said, NAT instance would just be so, or not, rather, NAT gateway or NAT instance is a way to connect your private, we'll put a lock here for private, your private subnets to the local internet for like whatever reason. But generally, like good like architecture practice is like, if something doesn't need to be open to the public internet in your VPC, like don't do it. So like, for instance, in my workplace, we are going to be having, like my team is working on a suite, I'm trying to sound all fancy. We're working on 2 microservices that handle like creating events on Eventbrite. So like all we're going to be doing is, you know, like just, it's kind of like a general like CRUD service. So you can like create, read, update. We do soft delete, so you don't like delete from the database, but you set something to be deleted and it gets deleted like later. You'll learn more about that when you learn about DynamoDB.
Is that a soft delete?
Soft delete. It doesn't matter.
I remember my roommate talking about soft deletes before, so that's the only reason why I was asking.
All right, sweet. But you're gonna like, when you guys get to learning about databases, DynamoDB is what we're using, and it's a pretty cool technology. But anyway, so we have like a little CRUD service in the background, but generally like when you're doing like distributed systems, so like the stuff you'd be putting on AWS, you'll have like a whole bunch of microservices. They might be managed by Kubernetes or ECS or whatever, but we don't care right now. It's managed by some shit back there. These different services will have databases behind them. They'll have different protocols so they can like talk to each other if needed, or talk with whoever they need to talk to get the information that they need. And usually these will be like, there might be like some sort of ingress layer where you can like have your front ends talk to the service and get the information that they need, which with the API gateway. And then like your front end, like I said, front end, well, that's a cloud, but it doesn't need to be a cloud. I could have just put FE. But I'm telling you like this stuff, not to like be like, oh, you need to learn this, but generally like speaking, like the way why VPCs are cool. You could have, for example, like your whole app. Like let's say for simplicity, we'll say that Sarah came up with a Facebook competitor, right? And Facebook's running scared because hers is better and it's not unethical and doesn't steal your data. But if she were to do something like that, she would have her website likely in a VPC, right? Depending on how she deploys it. Let's say she's only deploying it to one geo for whatever reason. She would have her stuff in a VPC. Maybe she'd want the front end, if we're not talking about caching or anything, to be deployed in the public subnet, so people can go through and talk to their stuff, like see the site or whatever. But then like all this stuff back here will probably be in either one like private subnet or a whole bunch of different like private subnets, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So that's generally like, you'll probably need to go through the networking stuff a few times, and if I can, I'll try to like go through like what I looked at and try to find like some resources that I had to look up, because I honestly, when I was going through it the first time with both the cloud practitioner and the solutions architect, I went through and I'm like, I'm in danger. So I went online and found some outside resources so I can get different people explaining it to me so I can understand, because it's something you don't even like. Everything else kind of makes sort of makes sense. Like we've all heard of servers before. Generally everything else kind of we can fit conceptually into something we've seen before, but all of this networking stuff is completely alien. So I'll look for the resources that I found to help me understand it, if that'll help you guys.
I did post a couple of things like VPC for dummies, and then what is a VPC? Amazon Virtual Private Cloud explained. So I think,
bro, sorry, I said bro. I meant, like.
I know, you're fine.
I think literally that's what I used.
Really?
Google Career
Second
Certificates
link,
provide.
the VPC for dummies looks very familiar.
Yeah, it looked like it was very simple.
Yep, this is what I looked at. And I actually also sent this to a coworker too, because he's like, what's the VPC? And I'm like, I don't know. But yeah, this is a good.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was like, man, I need to find other resources as she's talking, and those were the two that I came up with.
Yeah, and I'm looking, just like scanning through, because it's been a minute since I looked at it, but it talks about a VPC, it talks about subnets, segregating your workloads so they're not all in a single network. It talks about availability, which private and public subnets, the internet gateway, NAT gateway. I don't see any mentions of NAT instances because generally people don't use those anymore, because you'll have to manage them yourselves instead of letting AWS do all the hard work for you. You just kind of plug it into your architecture.
Mm-hmm.
But I would recommend like NAT gateway versus NAT instance. And it does talk about route tables and network access list. Yeah, this is definitely a good one. I think I looked over this to understand it, and like I would always like review like my networking stuff before, like really review that shit hard before going into the exam.
Okay, I will keep looking at that. And then I found like another one where I just need to see. I think it says like Amazon VPC 5 reasons to use and learn it. Here, I'll add this in.
If you're really interested in this stuff, AWS also has a networking certification.
Yeah, that's one of the specialties, right?
Yeah. I'm saying that not because I'm interested, but if you are interested, go for it.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. I'll see how it feels as I'm going along right now. So but yeah, a lot of what he went over, no, you're fine. What he went over was just like creating the EC2, and then he also created a VPC, which I did not do. I was just like watching because I wanted to watch first and then do it.
Can you actually Can you share your screen and show us your EC2? Or did you already take it down?
I already took it down, but
Yeah.
I know that I have a video of someone creating the VC2, and then I also have like step-by-step, like with screenshots of like when I was creating my EC2. Like I didn't create the EC2 like now. I created it like when we first started this study group, because that was like part of what we were doing with another video.
Right. I was only gonna like have you, I don't know if old boy talked about this. I was only gonna have you pull it up just to show that generally, like when you're creating EC2s now, it didn't used to be this way, but they're usually like by default put in a VPC.
Yeah, he did show that. He
Sweet.
did show that it automatically creates a VPC, but he also showed us how to create our own VPC on our own, like with our own special rules and stuff like that.
Nice.
That's the thing that I didn't do. I just followed because it was getting late and I just was getting tired of watching and writing notes. So I just needed a stop. So, but I did mark down when it started so I could go back and do it.
Okay. I mean, I ain't judging. I didn't even watch the video. So, but if he talked about it, then that's definitely a good thing to know.
Yeah, I'm trying to see like if I could actually go in. Yeah, okay. Let's do this. Here. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
You see where it says VP? Does it say AWS console or does it show something else?
It says,
It says console.
Okay. I got 3 screens, so I wasn't sure which one it popped up. I chose this one. But if you go to the VPC here, and then he had us click here, and this is our VPC that we created when we automatically created our EC2. And it talks about like I don't, yeah, we have the V4, but on his, we didn't have the V6 either. And he kind of talks a little bit about like the round table, and he's like, these are all defaults. And the one that we created, we kept some of the defaults, but we did change, what was it? I wrote it down. So like when you do your file out VPC name, like he created a name, and then he did the public subnet, which he did the IPv4, but he changed that to 10.0.1.0, and then like /24. And then our availability zone he chose was US East A. And then he kept like the subnet name public subnet, and then the enabled DNS hostname, yes, hardware tenancy default, and then we created the VPC by clicking the button. That's as far as I got.
There's a few things to unpack there. One of them, can you click on the route table? Can you click again?
Right here?
Yeah, or actually, hold up. I forget. I'm just saying. I mean, sorry.
I could go back. You want me to go back?
No, you're fine. All right, so I'm just trying to remember what route tables are. Maybe one of y'all can remind me. I just like some of the best ways to kind of like hammer in concept with AWS is to go in and poke around in the console and like see what it's doing. But if I'm being completely honest, I don't remember exactly what route tables are for.
He says that, well, I looked this up. A route table contains a set of rules called routes. Routes are used to determine where network traffic from your subnet or your gateway is directed. I'm sure there's more to that.
Okay.
Look into because I clicked, let's see how it works. So it says your VPC has an implicit router, and you use route tables to control where network traffic is directed. Each subnet of your VPC must be associated with a route table, which controls the routing for the subnet. And then it has like in parentheses, subnet route table. You can explicitly, do you want me to stop or you want me to keep going?
I'm saying okay, like I'm listening. I'll mute
Oh,
myself.
sorry. No, you're fine. You can explicitly associate a subnet with a particular route table. Otherwise, the subnet is implicitly associated with the main route table. Saying route table a lot. A subnet can only be associated with one route table at a time, but you can associate multiple subnets with the same subnet route table. You can optionally associate a route table with the internet gateway or virtual private gateway. This enables you to specify routing rules for inbound traffic that enters your VPC through the gateway. And then it says, like, for more information, click here for gateway route tables. I don't know if that gave us any, like, great.
I think so.
Okay.
I think generally what it is, route table, like it's a set of rules, right? So like what's allowed into your VPC or like allowed to access different resources. So if we look at here, I could have, whatever, I'm sorry, I'm extra. This is your internet gateway, I'm assuming, because the IDW. But you see this CIDR block right here, the 0.0.0/0. That means that every all internet traffic can come in through the internet gateway. So that's like it seems like it's an allow rule. Whereas we also have this, like, remember I posted before in the chat that 172 is generally like the kind of prefix, as it were, for like private whatever. Have you guys talked about CIDR blocks yet?
No, it's in his slides, but he has not talked about CIDR blocks. That's another thing that I wrote down that I need to break down, because I know that maybe he'll eventually get to it, but while he's talking about it, I'm like, I don't know what these things are. So I've been like searching for it myself.
Okay.
So I haven't gotten to that yet.
Well, generally, okay, so when like this little ombre down here, we got 0.0, I'm messing up zeros too. That's supposed to be a 0, but it's a 6. So that's like generally what you would see with like IP address, right? You have 0 through 255, and then you have like these other numbers, right? So number, point number, point number, point number. CIDR blocks will have a slash, like what you see here, and then a number after it. So
is that like sending it to a specific route?
Not quite. It's a range of IP addresses. So generally what happens, like with the CIDR block, I think you're holding a certain number of bits in the IP address constant that make a range. It can get a bit confusing, and I don't know if you I'll double check to see if you need to know this for the cloud practitioner. But I know, like, when I was doing the solutions architect, I had to like memorize like a way to figure out like how many IP addresses come up automatically. Like, for instance, like I told you guys before that there are 4.29 billion IP addresses in IPv4. So if you're using the -0, you get that many IP addresses. So that's like the whole open internet. But the /16, for example, will give you 65,000 IP addresses. So it's just like setting up a range.
Now, what is it where, because like I remember having a conversation with Brian, and he said something about where you have your, maybe it's the HTTP that I'm thinking. If something where they change it every so often. So like on your EC2, if you don't specify a specific.
He's talking about elastic IPs.
Okay.
There. That's generally like your when you spin up a EC2 instance, you'll get a random IP address. And generally, if you're setting up your networking in the correct way, where you're interacting with security groups instead of IP addresses, then like for your internal resources, and that won't matter. But I don't know if you've played around with, like, say, maybe setting up an auto scaling group and maybe like putting like the desired number of EC2s in there is 1 and just like killing your server and it coming back up again. But when you do that, you'll get a different IP address. If you want the IP address to be the same for that EC2 for whatever reason, instead of like dynamically creating a new one every time a new resource spins up, then you're going to want to have an elastic IP.
Gotcha. Yeah, I just remember when I first did my one EC2, he was telling me about that. Then he said, like, if you pay for one, you could have that constant one. So that was the only reason why, like, as you're talking, I guess that my brain went somewhere else. I apologize.
No, don't apologize. Generally though, like you'll for the cider block or cedar blocks, I say cider because
it looks like cider actually.
Yeah. And I like apple juice, so but when for the exam, you'll memorize some sort of formula. I did some sort of like weird math to figure it out on my exam. Like some sort of like trick to remember. But in the real world, me and my coworkers, we were looking at subnets or like just kind of like just like cedar blocks for like in our VPC and like the cedar blocks, I guess, associated with route tables for our different subnets, right?
Right.
This was like a few months ago. And when we were doing that, we just Googled cedar block calculator to see how much we were working with because we didn't want to do that math. But I'm gonna give myself an action item to see if cedar blocks are on the Cloud Practitioner.
I have one of the tests I could actually do like I won't do it like right now, but I could probably do like a Control F and see if I could just do cedar and see if anything comes up.
Okay.
That might be helpful. But yeah. And then that link actually has that I added in Slack has the cedar calculation tool that you were just talking about.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, he didn't really. So he goes over stuff like it's a little bit more in depth, as in what we were doing with the AWS thing that we were following. But I still feel like there's some stuff that, and maybe it's just me, like I need more content to understand certain things. Like, you know, he doesn't really explain what a subnet is. It's like, and it's like, I guess, you know, the curse of knowledge, you already know this. He already knows this, but, you know, he forgets that we might not know it. So I kind of went in and started making notes on some of that stuff. And hopefully it's not like going too crazy. But I added it, and like we still have like Elastic compute, the EC2, the SGs, EBSs, and then S3 to do, and the module completion an exam. So I know like for this unit, it's actually over 2 hours. So I only scheduled like 2 cards for an hour. So I have to look at the next card to see like what we'll be going over for the second card, but this is what pretty much all we went over for this card. So it looks like he does talk about the EC2 basics. He talks about launching an EC2. And then he goes over like instances for Windows and Mac, and then to start your web server. So it might be stuff that like we already did, but it's a nice, I guess, recap. And then he does kind of like with the users and groups and roles, he did go into a little more detail on that. So that kind of is helpful than instead of just saying do this, this, and this. So hopefully we'll get some more information out of that one on the second card.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Nadia, do you have anything that you want to bring up?
I'm so sorry. I had not slept the most last night. I'm like half asleep right now.
You're
really.
fine. You're fine. Well, I mean, this is pretty much all that we went over for the first half hour. So if we want, we could just head off here and I'll kind of edit some of the stuff of the video and then post it.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Thank you, Alexis, for explaining all that with me.
Yeah, thanks, Lex.
No problem. I'll see you all around.
Okay.
See ya.